2013 Public Safety Committee to order, and I'll entertain a motion to approve the minutes of last month.
So moved.
Got a motion? Do we have a second?
Second.
And a second. All in favor of the motion say aye.
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 All opposed? Motion carries. First on the agenda tonight is the emergency management report. How you doing tonight?
All right, good evening, ladies and gentlemen. You have your report in front of you. I'd just like to highlight some training that we've done over the past few days, actually since we last met. We participated in an MTSU Health Services tabletop exercise on the 14th, which was really an eye-opener for me. We also organized and conducted a tabletop exercise with Laverne concerning hazmat, and that was on the 20th. And today we just finished up with the city of Murfreesboro a limited full-scale exercise, and that was out at Miller Coliseum. Basically, a couple of vehicles turned over in a hazmat, 3 different chemicals. It went pretty well.
And I think those are some federal or state regulations as far as they got to have certain training per year.
Yes. And so we're getting a lot of training done at this time, and we want to do more. But other than that, we had 3 instances where we were called out. None of them amounted to a lot. One of them would seem at first glance to be a big one, which was the anhydrous ammonia release at Americold on the 5th. What happened was they had a valve that had a small leak on an air exchanger on the roof. They did what they're supposed to and called it into the National Response Center. National Response Center, of course, called TEMA. TEMA called us. They didn't request any assistance. But what they didn't say, what kind of got us involved was in all that traffic. They didn't say, not only did they not say, well, they said they didn't need any help from us, but what they didn't say was we had it contained. So we went ahead and rolled out there just to make sure. And of course, they had it contained at that point. The other 2 were minor instances. Other than that, if you have any questions on my report, that's all I have.
Anybody have any questions?
Do you meet with the volunteer firefighters?
Not yet. I haven't had any meeting with them. If I need to do that, I do it through Larry Farley, Chief Farley, excuse me. Did you get my email from your question last time? Did I answer your question, sir?
I did.
Anybody else?
Motion to approve the report.
Got a motion? Do we have a second?
Second.
And a second. All in favor of the motion say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Motion is carried. Anything else?
That's all. Thank you, sir.
Thank you. Next is the Correctional Work Center report. How you doing tonight?
Yeah, we're always together.
Let's see. First, the board meeting minutes. Is that what you got?
Yes, huh?
Alrighty. Board meeting was conducted July 1st. Went over commissions from ABL, a food service, and IC Solutions, inmate phone company. Everything's going good with those. National Machine, we have dealing with some issues with our chillers again, so we're working on that, but trying to come up with a happy medium there. We addressed our former chaplain, Pastor Jimmy Tyson. He resigned after 15 years of service with the county as the chaplain for the Correctional Work Center. So we acknowledgement to him at his church yesterday, and it was received very well. We produced a new video with great assistance from the ORT staff, and it came out great. Plan on asking if they wanted to broadcast it on Channel 19, so they agreed to do that. So hopefully in the near future they'll start showing that. It's showing the history of the Correctional Work Center from the 1800s to present. So it came out pretty good. Discuss the next board meeting, which will be September 9th.
What's the video for? What are you going to use it for? If it came out pretty nice, what are you going to do with it?
We were using it. We have once a month we do a morning with the mayor meetings with other elected officials and directors of the county to do a presentation. Was the main motivation to show them what we actually do on a daily basis, all the other directors and elected officials, what Correctional Work Center does. So I decided to just do a history of it to show them how incarceration used to be with the chain gangs, and just lock them up and have them work on the roads with shotguns and men on horses, to now where it's a lot about rehab and reentry programs and things like that. So it came out. I wish I.
Does it give the public out there an idea of actually what goes on as far as what the department does and what the
Exactly.
employees do and stuff like that as well?
Mm-hmm. Came out great. So hopefully I'll have to ask Lee Harris when he plans to show it on Channel 19. So let y'all know. State Little Pickup is the next one. Showing we got $2,800, $23.96 for the month of July. Next is the UL activity reports, which reflects average census, daily intakes and releases, working crews.
Question.
Yes.
And if in July you had 164 head count, I know I asked you this last month. How much was it in June before that? The number out there.
The average,
Yeah.
we average about the same, 160 to 170.
Okay.
We've been averaging that for a good year now. We've been around that same number.
You have room for about 250, right?
Exactly. And like I discussed before, is the transfers is nothing but a lot of medical issues over at the Sheriff's Department that they're deemed not physically fit to come over. Of course, we don't have that 24-hour medical coverage, so if they are really sick, they'll keep them there.
Right.
And we still just do misdemeanors or a little bit of felons, depends on the nature of the crime.
And I guess the reason I know last month the sheriff had said something about the 15 on the floor or something, and I just want to.
Well, the only people he's had on the floor recently has been the females.
The female.
The
Okay.
percentage of the female inmates continues to increase. It's
Okay.
about 20% plus.
Is it?
And they're all over there in that original part of the building, so that's about all the capacity they have.
Right.
I think last quarter had 5 on the floor.
5.
Incident reports being stable to about 215 for July. Programs, they were on holiday, but GD did get started again. They're going 2 weeks strong now with the school year back in, so the teachers are back in classes with the inmates. DUI little pickups is still going great. And that's the next reports reflect the monthly worker report. These days reflect number of crews, inmate crews that actually went out, a number of men, and you base that on the hours they work. And we normally rated by minimum wage. It's what they actually saving the county and the townships. So May was 67,000 plus. June was 54,000. July was 67,000 again, and so far in August, 67,000. So it does pay to have them. That's what it kind of balances out with us getting the healthy guys and women over there to do this kind of service.
Any questions?
Who provides the medical services for your department?
Rudd Management, local doctor, Dr. Rudd.
Is that the same one that does the sheriff's?
The sheriff's and now the juvenile also.
So why can't we put more people from the sheriff's office into the work center if it's the same doctor?
The same doctor, but we don't have the same coverage. We have 12-hour coverage, well, probably roughly 14. And they have 24. So any acute cases, they will keep at the sheriff's department because they have the 24-hour coverage.
And to do that, to make it 24 instead of 12, we would have to actually increase that line item for the contract, correct?
Yes.
That's correct.
So
This is taking care of both of them. He is going to have an amendment to address this, what we're talking about here.
Okay. Any other questions on his report? If there's no questions on the report, entertain a motion for the report.
So moved.
Got a motion, is there a second?
Second.
And a second, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, motion carries. Got a
Okay. Lisa and I just got this repaired. She can come up here if she wants to, but he hadn't seen this yet. I told him about it. Okay. All right, we have Dr. Rudd providing services at both the, well, now he's at all three of our locations. He just started at the Juvenile Detention Center, but at the jail and at the work center at Juvenile Detention. Okay, at the jail, we have an amount in there for the the indirect cost in our contract is $1.4 million. And Dr. Rudd came in, let's see, how much did he come in? I should have brought
It
one.
was 34, 36.
He came in about $37,000 less than the $1.4 million, so we overpaid him $37,000. So he gets half of that. We share in the savings, 50-50. So we're gonna. This amendment reflects $18,000 that Dr. Rudd's gonna pay us back, and it also reflects the fact that Dr. Rudd, it's a little bit different arrangement at the work center. For the direct cost, he has a $400,000 amount was in there. We didn't, that was our first full year for us to really sort of get our arms around it. He spent a little less than the $400,000, but the indirect cost cannot exceed 20% of whatever the direct cost is, and that's about $80-something thousand. So we didn't have really the indirect cost even budgeted. So we almost spent the full $400 on direct cost, which is on-site staff people plus any cost that we expend if we have to send a person out to the hospital or otherwise for medical services. All that to say,
This amendment nets the two.
the net's the 17,000 against the additional amount of money. So it's he's getting about $77,000, I think, additional. In addition to that, so we can go forward this year and not have to do an amendment, at least not this big of an amendment next go around. That $400,000 for the direct cost needs to be about $460,000 or a little bit more. So we're asking to add $60,000 to do that. So this $60,000 to take care of the new direct cost that we really didn't have projected in the budget because we didn't know what it was until we got through with that fiscal year and got those indirect costs presented through an accounting firm for us to put that in the budget. And then this $58,000 is it's a net of what we've overpaid at the jail versus what we underpaid at the work center. All that being said, we need to move $118,275 into our other contracted services at the work center.
Something will be similar with this in the sheriff's department's budget.
No,
No.
the sheriff's already it's not structured the same way.
Okay.
And he's paying us back $18,000, 17 or 18 from the sheriff. The rest of this is all attributable to what's happening at the work center.
What about the juvenile detention? Is it-
We just started that.
Okay.
That's an $85,000 a year budget that he has at the juvenile detention center.
Is there any other questions on the amendment?
So does this extra money make it to where it's 24-hour
No,
service?
no. This just reflects the actual cost that we've experienced the previous fiscal year, okay? And we're bringing it forward, so we've got the right amount of money in our budget for this current year, plus we're paying what we underpaid for last year.
So there's basically 60,000 that you're asking for that we didn't take into account that you think that we'll need to finish out for the entire year.
For this current year,
This current year.
plus making that up for last year as well, netting that against the 17 or
The
18,000.
60 is for the 13-14 year.
Right. Well, I mean, I can see where we need to go ahead and pay what we're in arrears. And you're balancing that out,
Yeah.
that 17, 18,000 that we split there. But do we need to go ahead and move that 60,000 now?
Yeah, we need to go ahead and put it in the budget because we're going to spend it this year based on what we did previous
Well, I
year.
mean, we got how many months left in this year until next June?
We've got a lot, but,
Yeah.
but we're gonna, he's sort of like being on a retainer. We're paying him so much every month, so we need to increase how much we're paying every month. We don't pay it all out to him, except we'll divide 400, instead of dividing 400 by 12 and paying it out monthly, we're gonna divide 460 by 12 and pay it out monthly.
Any other questions?
Where's this coming from?
It's coming out of ending fund balance.
A few months ago, we had to increase the fee for the DUI offenders. If we were to increase that again, does that money go into the general fund?
That money goes into the general fund.
Yes.
The DUI money, yes.
Well, I wouldn't be opposed to increasing that some more to help offset the cost of the increased medical things. Those people have to show up with cash or they can't do their service, and I think we need to look at maybe going up on that some more too to help offset the cost. And
We did go up, did we?
Did
we
did
went,
we do the
up a little.
maximum?
We went up a little,
Went
but
up
it's
to
still
30 from 20.
What's the maximum on that? Is there one?
Well,
there isn't.
I think
There's
there's
not
a
one?
maximum.
kind of
Yeah,
base it
there
on
is.
your daily operation. And we gave the example, Davidson County's charging $40-some, I believe it was.
I think they were charging 52, but it just says that the county commission can set the daily fee. It
Right.
didn't put a limit on there. And I would rather the people who are committing the crimes pay for this and have more things coming out of the general fund with the taxpayers are having to pay for property taxes. So I would like to see that on the agenda again next month. Those people have to show up with cash to pay each day for their fees, and if they don't show up with cash, they don't get to do their service work. Is that correct?
Right. Yeah.
And if you have somebody that really cannot afford the fee, then the judge has the option to waive that fee for them. But I think that the people who are using this service should be the ones who are shouldering the burden of these costs and not everybody else.
But
And
those
that's just
people
my-
aren't the
Those
ones that
people
are
aren't
using
any of
medical.
this service, but,
Well, the criminals should be the ones that are funding all of our correctional things to the biggest extent that they can, instead of the property tax payers. And that's just my personal opinion. I'd rather the people who are violating the law shoulder more of this than everybody else. Because it's going to be a tight budget year again with everybody else's health insurance costs going up again. And we have a way that we can offset this without affecting the rest of the taxpayers. And I would like to see that on our next month's agenda.
Well, Becky, would you add that on there, please?
Okay.
Don't we have to be able to justify what we charge them, though? Isn't it based on something? If somebody comes and asks us, we have to justify.
no, there's no
it.
justification. We don't want to price people out of being able to pay and everybody have to go back up to the judge and ask them to waive the fees. We want to be able to collect what is reasonably.
I guess my question
Able to
would
be
be,
paid.
what would be the indirect cost? If that was raised so far up, what's the indirect cost of incarceration and all that stuff we're gonna have to?
It would far exceed the indirect cost of incarceration is huge.
I'm just thinking that, and what you said I agree with, but I'm just trying to think also outside the box here. What's the indirect cost gonna be if say Joe Blow citizen can't pay that? Is he or she gonna have to be still incarcerated any longer?
The judge has the option to waive it if you have somebody that really can't afford to pay it. They can say that they're indigent and the judge can waive the fee and they can still do a service. But the people in Nashville and Memphis told me that everybody that's supposed to show up and pay a fee shows up and pays the fee cash. If they've got enough money to go out and booze it up and drink and get a DUI, they're probably going to be able to come
Right.
up with a little bit of cash to pay their fees. And I think that I'd rather those people help cover the cost for the workhouse and the jail
Right.
if they're the ones that are going to be going through the correctional system.
Any other questions on the amendment on the floor?
Yeah. Why can't we put this 60,000 in at the March meeting? We could still got supposedly we'll have plenty in there to pay the fees to Dr. Rudd, but if things should turn out to the good, then we don't already have it in the Correctional Work Center budget. It's still in March, that it would go before budget in early April, the April commission, so that we'd have the rest of April, May, and June if we needed that
You
60,000.
mean to collect this much additional money from
No,
the
no,
DUI
the
folks?
No, the 60,000 that
The
The
$60,000
budget-
There's
extra.
more that it's gonna be this year than last year. My point is, why don't we wait till our March meeting to approve that if we need it? Who knows? People might get straighter, or not as sick as they were.
I'm missing how we going, in a month or two, going to gather this much money together.
I think he's talking about the additional 60,000 that you all are asking for,
Yeah.
waiting until
You're
March.
anticipating it being more this year than last year.
I guess I'll look at it.
Wait till next March, okay.
Yeah, because see, we'd still
Because
have
we're under-
April, May, and June left in the fiscal year.
So we're under budgeted.
As a matter of equity, it's a reasonable thing to do to pay a person sort of what he's expensing as we go along.
Well,
Dr. Rudd.
okay, but you're taking the
Had
amount
we-
and dividing it each month, I thought you said.
We are.
By
Had
12.
we known that this should have been 460, I would have put it in the budget for 460 because that's how many dollars Dr. Rudd will earn by spending the money and providing these services.
Well, 12 into 460, what I'm getting at is roughly 46,000, something like that, a month, right? So, if we giving 46,000 every month, we're not gonna have surpassed the amount by the end of March, is what I'm saying. So why not wait and see, and if it goes better and the people don't get sick in the correctional work center and he doesn't have to do as much, why don't we put it through there? To me, it's the same thing as what we did with the sheriff on some of his items, is to, hey, let's wait before we give you the money back, just to see when we need it, when we went through some on the chillers last year and all this.
I think that was more on like
The 60,000 is a little under what his total cost exceeded about 77,000. We offset the 77 by what we saved at the sheriff's office to reduce it to the 60. So the 60 is not an excessive amount of money.
If we don't use the money, we're not gonna spend it. So
No.
I mean,
But
we
he
might
said-
as well do it now, not kick the can down the road till March and have to go through all this again and then go through
No,
budget.
I don't think you're gonna settle up. We're settling up now after Dr. Rose closed his books as of June 30th. So now, after June 30th last year, we know what we owe him for last year. We're really not gonna know
Until, yeah.
until
We've got
August
a
next year.
benchmark and a history of what's occurred last
do
year.
now.
And now we're going looking at this year's budget.
And then
It's basically-
hopefully, we'll be closer.
Well, on this, we don't ever know how many sick inmates we're gonna have, or how serious those conditions might be. I mean, we're kind of rolling the dice on whenever we put a price out there. I was just hoping that we could hold on to that money longer.
In
But
other
we're
words,
not expending it all at once. We are, as
Yeah.
Mayor said, we'll have to pay him what we owe for the 58.
Fund it all at once.
That's our point.
Why do we fund it all at once? That's our
So that-
point.
Well, I mean.
Because he's
you know you're
spending
gonna-
the money every month.
Yeah, well,
He's cash flowing the
But-
county.
but we've already got however much it was in there, 400,000. And that, Commissioner P and I, what we're getting at is when you hit the unassigned fund balance in August, it becomes a lot easier in September and October and the other committees and this type
I
thing.
guess I'll look at it, it's a commitment. You've got a
Okay.
contract with him, and it's,
We're not suggesting that you don't uphold the contract and adhere to it. What we're saying is you've got enough money in there
To
that
go
if you give him, what you,
through April.
if, say you had that 60,000 in there that you're asking for right now, you're gonna give him X amount. Well, you've got
only
enough in there
400
without
in
that.
there. You've only got 400 budgeted for him
Yeah,
for the year.
and you say it's gonna take 460,000.
So I'm gonna take 460.
But if you've got a contract with someone and you got a liability of a certain amount of money, I'm no accountant by no means. But you've got to show that liability through the budget process
That's
for
what
the
I'm-
entire year.
That's what I'm saying.
We don't
That's what
budget
I'm-
on a month-to-month basis, we budget on a yearly basis, that's why we need to go ahead and correct it now.
That's my feeling on it.
If you have car insurance, and you pay
6 months. ahead.
$1,200 a year, okay? And there's no benefit to pay that $1,200 the first month as opposed to $100 a month. Do you pay it
We're not
$1,200?
saying, well, I'm not saying that we're gonna pay this out all at once.
I
We're
know,
budgeting
so
it
why
at
does it
the
have
same
to be in there? That's what I'm trying to get up here.
Because he has to pay his bills every month, and he won't have enough money to pay his bills every month.
Well, we're not gonna give it to him anyhow, except the portion he's to get that month, correct?
We're gonna,
I guess I'll look at it, I
Right,
know that
we
we're
must-
talking
some-
communities, but I mean.
We're not on the same wavelength.
I think what you're confused about is, it's not like we pay what we owe him every month. We take we're saying that last year we spent $460,000, and so we're gonna divide that by 12 months this year and pay that every single month, and then we even it out at the end of the year. We figure out what we actually
Kind of
owe
like
him.
what you can do with electricity bills, right?
Yeah,
Okay.
levelized billing.
Okay, so why can't we, so why do we have to add the money right now since it's not there? Because if we're paying X amount a month, we're not gonna run out of money by the end of April, so why can't we
Okay,
come back
you
and
want us to take 460, divide it by 12, and pay that amount of money per month.
Yeah,
But
that's what
until the 400's gone, we don't appropriate any additional money in the
That's
budget.
what I'm saying, what's the point of it?
Because the auditors, they don't much like that.
Okay, accounting principles,
Well,
is that
Yeah.
it? Practices?
To me,
Okay.
I get to look at.
All
you
right,
don't-
I'll go along with that
yeah,
then,
You
if that's
pay,
the
you
answer.
budget a whole year's salary for somebody, but not give it all to them all at once,
Mhm.
but you gotta budget it, cause you know.
You
you're
gotta
gonna
budget it.
pay
Mhm.
Well, if we'd have known that, we'd have budgeted last,
We would budget it then.
like for this year, but
Right.
we didn't know that. Since we don't know that and we can't budget it, that's why I was saying, well, let's wait. Maybe those revenues will come in and we don't have to move this, but like I said, that's my opinion.
Okay. All right. We don't have a motion yet, do we? All right. Is there any other questions on the amendment? Is there a motion?
I'll make a motion to approve the mayor's recommendation.
Is there a second?
Second.
And a second. All right, discussion. Hearing or seeing none, call the roll.
Commissioner P.,
No,
Commissioner Jeff Phillips,
Aye.
Commissioner Tiffany Phillips,
Yes.
Commissioner Schaefer,
I'll abstain. I can see both sides of this, and that's why I can't go with either one.
Commissioner Stevens,
Yes.
Commissioner Young,
Yes.
Commissioner Farley,
Yes. Motion passes.
5 to 1.
All right. Thank you. All right, next is the OSHA report, and I think we,
Kind of like your escrow, isn't
this is the,
it? It doesn't go up.
closing
Dan, is that-
Got a packet there for us tonight. Good evening.
how y'all doing tonight?
Doing well. Just like to mention,
Brought some backup tonight, didn't you?
yes, sir, did. I was going to say I brought
Must be
the
a bad
director with
month.
me. Melissa
I'll let you
Stinson.
decide.
We have several things we wanted to bring tonight, and just start off first off with the OSHA report. You'll have that as the first thing in your on your display there. You'll notice in the month of July we had a total of 8 injuries requiring medical attention. That brought the total to 96 for the year. OSHA recordables were 70. Restricted days had 48, 12 lost time days, and 10 others. When you look at the next page, you'll see how that works out for the graph. The total dollars incurred for the month of July at this time is $30,195. Of those 8 injuries, 6 of them were with the Board of Education, and they incurred $26,295. And the county had the other 2 for $3,900. And then that last page there shows you where those 2 for the county were. And then the last page will show you the total dollars incurred and how that reflects over the previous 2 years. And just to kind of tell you where we are year-to-date wise, if I were to look at 2011 as of the end of July, we had 139 injuries. In 2012, it was 104. As I already told you, this year we're at 96, so we are on a downhill slide for that. If you looked at the total dollars incurred, and you'll find that that was in 2011 was 366. In 2012, that's 340. In 2013, that's 196,000. But I like to caution you, those numbers in 2013 still have not matured. Some of those are only a few months old, so therefore it takes a while for some of those to close out. That's all I have for the OSHA report at this time.
Any questions on the report?
I'd like to say a thank you for your office and how well and efficiently you work as from an employee standpoint. I guess, you know, but somebody spilled some water in the hallway at school, and I slipped in the water and fell, and it was really nice that I was able to go immediately and get medical attention, and because I just had surgery on that hand too. So.
I understand.
So,
I understand it all came out well too.
It did, thank you. So it was really nice working in the process. It was
Thank you.
very nice.
All right, we got a motion and a second on the report.
I don't have a motion.
Do we have is there a motion on the report?
Move to approve the report.
And is there a second?
Second.
And a second. All in favor of the motion, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, motion carries.
Okay. Next thing I'd like to bring for you tonight, there's been a recent inspection of the landfill by the TOSHA, Tennessee OSHA. The inspection was a result of a individual complaint from a county resident. They complained of 15 different items to the TOSHA department, Tennessee OSHA, and of those 15, only 3 of them were actually cited as violations. Just one thing to know though, anytime OSHA goes into a facility to inspect, anything that they find in addition to, they also add that to the list. Just to let you know that they did find 9 additional items, with 3 of the 15 brought it to a total of 12. However, of those 12, all but 1 was immediately resolved, and that 1 was resolved prior to the suspense date provided by OSHA. And in your display there, you have a copy of the original citation and a copy of their findings and the resolutions that were there for that.
Did they give us a time, like a plan of corrective action where we have to send in?
Yes, sir. That's provided, a copy of all that's provided to you also there. What kind of corrective action was taken?
Any fines?
No. And I have to tell you that governments are not fined by TOSHA because it comes back out of the taxpayers' money, and it doesn't hurt the county, it hurts the taxpayers. They won't fine governmental agencies, except in extreme gross negligence.
Were any of them, now, all violations are serious to be, but were there any that are?
Well, yes, some of the things that they cited as serious is we didn't have any carbon monoxide posted in the garage area. There was welding equipment in the garage. There's no welding sign. Those are considered serious violations strictly because you need to notify employees. But they were immediately corrected by the fact of posting signs. Once we got the citations, we were able to see what those were. In fact, the day we got the citation, everything was corrected except for 1, and that was the lockout tagout. Now, while the county has a lockout tagout program, they were looking for a lockout tagout for specific pieces of equipment. So there was a dozer out there, and they didn't have a specific how to lock out that dozer, so we had to get with the manufacturer and get that taken care of. Also, same thing with trash compactors at the convenience centers. We had to make sure that we had that lockout tagout procedures for the trash compactors, and then also for the bucket loader out there.
Sound like we're on top of it.
Yes, sir. It's all resolved.
Yeah, anything,
anything-
complaints, that's pretty good when OSHA walks in on it, because they can go after anything and everything.
And they spent an afternoon out there, sir. They were 3 people. They brought 3 people with them to do the
Said you're
citation.
lucky you got away with 9 complaints only.
Everything is corrected, you said, everything?
Absolutely. Everything was corrected except for 1, the day after we received the inspection results.
One thing, not so much on the landfill, but some of the lessons learned from this inspection. Can we go through the other county departments and maybe things that were highlighted in this inspection, maybe you send out to the other departments to make sure that hazard communications being done, that no carbon monoxide presence signs, maybe, to some of these other departments to make sure that Because if one department probably missed them, we're probably missing them in other departments as well. And,
Yes, sir. In fact, when we were resolving that, is Dwayne Hawkins was with Tosha and myself when we were going through that. And Dwayne is doing inspections of the county departments. He's been out to the vehicle maintenance area. He's going to the schools. He's looking at that. And rather than just to try and tell them that, he's learned some things from that inspection and talking to them, and he's taking that to those individual places.
Well, let me ask you this, to be consistent, for consistency across the board in every department, since you know what Tosha is looking for and asking for, would it not be better if you went to each department and done the inspection yourself to kind of,
Dwayne is our safety coordinator within the county, and that is his specific role, is safety.
Right.
He does the inspections. Dan really works more on the OJI and the claims side. Dwayne accompanied during the TOSHA
Okay,
inspection as well. And so he's
so
abreast
it
of
would
what
be
the
him,
needs
it'd be
are
him,
and what to
okay.
look for.
I'm looking for consistency.
Sure, yeah, and he has a standard check sheet that he looks, so there's always certain things that he looks at because it's applicable across the board to all of our departments. And then he's also adding on to that process. So if he identifies something that's specific for that department, he'll note that as well.
Right. And the reason I'm bringing it up, I wasn't trying to put more work on it, but I was, for consistency purposes, because, you know, you tell one department here's one thing and another one here, it's going to be different.
Yes, and that's why he was present during the inspection also. He was
Right.
there.
And it's not going to be different on purpose, it's just going, you tell one thing,
Sure.
that person tells another, it's going to be different on down the road.
Yes,
your,
sir.
your focus on the landfill is one issue, where your focus on the Board of Education is a different issue, and it might be something that, that's good.
And Dwayne does inspections at all county facilities, schools, Board of Education, and the departments. So he's doing all that. So what he sees, he takes from one location to the next location.
Does he do that annually or biannually or?
Weekly. He's out
Weekly?
every week to a different location.
But he's in the location at least once a year.
Okay, that's what I was.
We used to have it split out to where they both worked, the OJI and the safety, and for the purpose of consistency, this has been 2 years now. I divided them out so that they each have their focused areas.
That's a good idea.
So.
All right.
I just brought that to you for
Okay.
information purposes tonight.
Okay.
The last thing I am bringing to you for your approval is a revision to the on-the-job injury program. That's your next item down on your display there. It says the OGI plan document revision. There were 5 things that we'd identified that we needed to address, and we've addressed those in the plan document. In the document that you have there, the changes are all highlighted in red, and a summary sheet provided you telling you what those changes were.
Let me ask a question here. On number 2, the extending the maximum period of benefits from 1 year to include 1 year from the date of the last surgery. So that could be longer than 1 year, correct?
Yes.
Okay, from the date of injury.
Right, so it doesn't happen frequently, but there have been a couple of incidences where they may have first surgery and then second surgery, and the second surgery may fall towards the latter part of their 1 year period. So what we're proposing is to make the 1 year from the date of the last surgery.
Because if it's within 1 year, they could come up in 11
That's
months
right.
and they'd have a month and
They
then
won't have it
then it's
resolved.
gone.
Right.
I've got one question. I know we've asked this before, but about the volunteers. Y'all got a separate policy for them. They don't fall under the OJI, or?
The volunteers, as far as their medical treatment, is taken care of under the OJI program.
Does that need to
Any
be?
of their absenteeism or anything like that is taken care of under a separate.
Because it doesn't say anything under qualified individuals there. It just says full-time, part-time, temporary, seasonal, and full-time elected and appointed officials.
It is in the document, though. It specifically addresses the volunteers. But in addition, we do have a separate policy as well for them for other medical and disability type situations. It's on page 3 at the bottom. The OJI policy also covers reserve deputies, rescue squads, and volunteer firefighters
Yes,
for qualified medical only.
Question number 4. Changing personnel coverage from all law enforcement officers to certified law enforcement. Now, a jailer or someone in detention is technically not a certified officer, but would they not be considered the same? How are they different in here?
The hypertension comes in where somebody is for example, certified officers out on the street facing gunfire, facing things that are going on out there that would actually
But they
be-
back there with 1,000 of them inmates that
They would come into the certified law enforcement officers and emergency responders is who we would look at. So any of our correctional would fall into that particular area.
So they're still got the same benefit as a certified officer would then?
As long as they are a deputy or the like.
So basically, that clause right there is a presumptuous disease for hypertension or any type of heart issue if they're an emergency responder because of the job, I guess. It's presumed under our OJI program that if something happens
what
to
that
them-
would do though is places where you have food service or an admin person or something like that, where they don't have direct contact with the violent crime that we're looking at.
Is there anything in there about contact with HIV? I know the state's passed a state law for firefighters. It's a presumptuous disease for HIV, but we've also got ambulance personnel that could come in contact to it.
We don't exclude that as a separate item that's covered under on the job injury program. It's not excluded.
Well, that's what I'm saying. Would it be presumed like the hypertension?
Yes,
deal?
it is.
Okay.
Yes.
That's what I wanted
Well,
to make sure it was in there. So.
Yeah.
Well, that brings up another question then, for the ambulance service, under hypertension and heart disease and stuff like that. By having the first responders in there, does that cover them?
Emergency responders. Right.
Emergency responders, okay.
The intent of this is right now the way the policy is written, the plan is written, as long as you're employed at the sheriff's office as an example, you may be an admin assistant. You will benefit from having extended benefits that would not go to an admin who worked in another department of the county. And so we talked to a couple different counties to see how they had handled this, and the certified law enforcement officer and emergency responder was the language that they have inside of their policy. If you're concerned about the correctional officers, we could add that in there as well as a third component to just make sure that there's no room for interpretation of it.
I think it should be, but, and also, so you feel comfortable with what's in the language for the ambulance service as
Yes.
well?
Yeah, absolutely.
Well, what about the workhouse people?
Correctional.
That would be correctional officer.
I like that if we could add correctional, because you could interpret that as not an emergency responder and not as a certified law enforcement, and that would be cutting out
Okay.
a lot of county employees that would be dealing with high stress situations.
So address there, in addition to certified law enforcement, to say also correctional officers.
Yeah.
That's the wording we're looking for.
And that just takes any leeway out of the picture, I think, because there's so many between the workhouse and then the correctional officers at the jail. That's a large portion of the work that could theoretically not be a certified law enforcement and not an emergency responder.
All right, so EMS, fire, and law enforcement and correctional.
So
with
Lynn and Bernard's.
Lynn and Bernard's as well, okay.
That covers everybody in that realm of.
Right.
So it would read all certified law enforcement officers, correctional officers, and emergency responders.
Correct. Yeah,
That's what we're talking about. Understood.
What section is that?
Page 3.
Page 3 of the document under benefits.
I used to do this quite often.
In fact, it is the
Last
third paragraph from the end under benefits and just before the rules section.
And then it would be on page 4
Yes,
as well. at
it
top.
comes back and repeats on page 4, yes. So that needs to be read through. And it's 2 places on page 4 that it
Yeah.
needs read through. So that's a total of 3 places.
I also appreciate the drug and alcohol test. On page 6.
In reference to diluted tests and the Board of Education.
What is different between what's required by the Board of Education and what's required by Rutherford County as such in drug test? Because you say certified and classified Board of Education are subject to OJI rules except by federal and state legislation and regulations and Board of Education policies and procedures.
Within county general, if there is a diluted specimen, we require retest. within the Board of Ed, they have policies and procedures in place in which they cannot always retest. So they will follow their established policies and procedures on diluted tests.
So the county general is different than the Board of Education. If someone's got a diluted test, it's more stringent than what the Board of Education.
Right, but it's also what we would recommend as a way to run the program as well.
I agree, but I think the Board of Education needs to come up to,
We had our legal department review the proposed language for diluted, and what you see inside of this plan document is what was recommended by the attorney for the Board of Education.
so the Board of Education's attorney recommended to be less stringent than what we are?
Yes, because they said that they couldn't uphold the requirement to have a diluted test reran in all instances.
If we got somebody out here that's diluting a test and they're out here, I think whether a teacher or whether they're, or what, you know.
Diluted tests aren't always indicative of illegal drug usage or anything like that. It could be something as simple as a medication.
Well, they're trying to cheat something.
Well,
Right?
one of
I
the
can only
things,
tell you what they advised.
one of the things that happens if an individual goes over to do a drug test and they say, I can't go, then they'll say, well, try drinking some water. The water you start drinking can actually dilute it right then, depending on how much water the employee drinks while they're waiting to take the test. If they drink more than a cup or two, then it actually gets diluted right there on the scene while they're waiting for the test. So it's not necessarily wrongdoing on the employee's part when they show up. It just may be the fact that they don't want to wait and they start drinking water, and then they drink too much water, it dilutes the test.
So if somebody drinks too much water in 10, 15 minutes, it's gonna dilute it.
It could. If you're sitting here like you don't have to go to the bathroom now, and
The medical professionals might need to know that, because they handed me 2 bottles of water when I went.
I'll be honest with you, I mean, not being disrespectful, I disagree with you
Okay.
100% on that.
Well, and what you're telling me is one set of lawyers said one thing about diluted drug tests, and the other set of lawyers, the county general, said something different.
So our normal procedure whenever we develop these drafts is we will reach out to county attorneys and tell them what the intent of the language is, and then they will write the legal language to be included in the plan document. At that point, we send it over to the Board of Education, and this is what they come back with.
If they fail a test once, they're gonna fail a test a second time. I mean,
Yeah, but then what's gonna happen if somebody gets hurt or killed and somebody out here, you know, this,
well, they're not gonna have the
Should've been
results
got
back
before.
immediately anyways, because we don't do that type of sampling. You
Okay.
can, it's expensive. You can do it where they can test it right there in the jar.
I just think if we're gonna treat one section one way, if employees, we need to check all the same.
Is what you're saying is there are rules and regulations from the state or federal government that makes it to where the school board cannot retest?
That's what I've
Yeah.
understood, is that there may be instances where those exist that they can't retest. Dan, have you ever had a delete where they've retested at the Board of Education?
No, I don't know of anything that they've ever done that at the board. Now, they've had some that, for whatever reason, may come back in a questionable state, and they've done their investigation, and they handle, obviously, the disciplinary action. We don't address disciplinary action in the OJI plan document. The attorneys made it very clear that the OJI plan document can only address benefits from the OJI plan. And so if I would get a positive test from County General, that would go to the HR department in the County General, and they would handle it according to their procedures. And if it came up positive for the Board of Education, it would go to the Board of Education, Human Resources, and they would handle it that way. So all I do is notify the different Human Resource Department, and they take the appropriate action for their division. So it's, Board of Education has a way of handling drug testing within their, how they discipline.
Any other questions, comments?
What do you need from us?
I'd like to ask for your approval tonight with the change of that one inclusion of the correctional officer in the 3 places that's been identified. Once I get your approval, then I'd like to have this committee submit it to the county commission for approval. so that we can put the whole plan into, revised plan for the county.
And what you're telling us is, there's no way that we can get the Board of Education to come on board with what?
When we attempted, we were told no.
Well, we can make a motion to approve it here with the stipulation that when it comes before the county commission, that Mr. Reed is there to answer the question as to what.
Right.
I think there's 7 of us here, there's 14 more. Somebody else is gonna see that thing there and scratch their head and wonder why separate but equal now in 1954, didn't it?
Ms. McLeod was actually the attorney that reviewed it for the Board of Education.
Okay, well, maybe Ms. McLeod, if we make that
I'd like
motion.
somebody to come from the school board to explain that to me, because I, for the life of me, I can't see it.
Well, then I'll make a motion that Public Safety sends it to the county commission without a recommendation and requests that the attorney for the Board of Education be there to answer any questions.
Okay, we got a motion. Is there a second to the motion?
But did you want to
Include the changes.
include the
Yeah,
correctional?
include the changes that was made, I'm sorry.
I was gonna have to amend it if you didn't put that in there.
It's not going forward with any recommendation.
Well, I think some may not want to do it. I'll change it. I'll make it to, goes forward with a positive recommendation.
I'll second that.
And everything else stays the same, then that's fine with me.
But then have the attorney there to answer the questions of why.
The one's gonna come up.
All right, is there any discussion?
I'm going to go along with this. I've had just enough time to skim through it, and I'd never seen this document before. And since I got elected in 2010, I think we've made great progress in getting information available to commissioners before meetings. But this is a 10-page document. It's pretty complex, and I feel like just reading it here without ever seeing it before, it's kind of scary that we approve things without reading them before we see them, you know. And I would just like to see if we can get with the mayor's office or OIT and find a way to get these materials to the commissioners before the committee meetings now. We've done a good job of getting those out there before the county commission meetings, but I would like to be able to read everything before we come to the committee. And that's nothing to you.
Well, if I may, I did speak and work, try to get this out earlier, and I have put a copy in all the mailboxes for all the commissioners. It's been in there for, I think, a week or so. And I also provided it to Vicki in the mayor's office, and she said that she, and I have no proof because I don't know, but she said she had uploaded this into this.
The SharePoint.
Yes, at the time that she got it, which would have been about a week ago also. But again, it's not necessarily an email goes out to everybody telling you that it's out there. I understand what you're saying, but I did provide it at least a week in advance to the.
This was in my box.
But this was the only thing that was in my mailbox today. So but that's okay. It's not that big of a deal. I had time to skim through it, but I just in the future want to have all the materials that we're voting on before the meetings. So we can
And
read
if
them.
I may, also, one other thing. This is an existing document that's already been approved by the county back in, originally in 2009.
With only 5 changes, right?
Yeah, with only the 5 changes that are being addressed at this time. And some of those, a couple of those changes are very minor, like changing it from the insurance department to risk management, which is nothing more than a
formality.
Yes.
I thought we'd updated it.
There was one other time, yes, but that was a couple of years ago, and it was just a few changes at that one time also.
I think those were grammatical changes, not intent changes like
They
some
were.
of these.
Yeah. But that was in 2010.
Yeah. Mhm.
Does this need to go to steering at all, since they kind of, or is it?
All previous time it's come to this
Steering.
department and
Well, I know
commissioner.
steering looks at all legislative in the county handbook, and I didn't know if, I mean, I guess it does fall under us since it's, you report to us, but I didn't know if they needed to look at it or.
When the original document came in, Commissioner Farley took it to the
Right.
county commission.
Okay.
All right, we got a motion and a second on the floor. All right, is there any more discussion? Hearing and seeing none, all in favor of the motion say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Motion carries.
That's all I have tonight.
Thank you. Juvenile detention report. How are you doing tonight?
Good. Good evening. You have in front of you our monthly report for July, as we report a month behind. And also, I don't know if you want to talk about it now or in a minute, but I also have 2 contracts from Tennessee County for juvenile detention
We'll do
debt.
your report first, and then we'll do that.
Okay.
Does anybody have any questions on the report? Looks like you got it.
Anything jump out at you?
Nothing unusual yet.
Move to approve the report.
Got a motion, is there a second?
Second.
And a second. All in favor of the motion, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, motion carries. You have the contracts.
Have 2 contracts tonight, one with Franklin County and one with Dyer County. Franklin County is just updating an old contract with our 175 rate. And then Dyer County is a new contract. We've not contracted with that county before. If you have any questions, I'll answer them.
How many counties are we contracted with?
I think these will bring us up to 25.
They're responsible for transporting them to and from.
That's correct.
Do most of those?
Dyer's a long way. That's why.
They actually, my captain spoke with them at a training event, and they were very happy to have the option to drive to Rutherford County to use our facility.
They must be going further than that.
Or we're
Just
just
wanna
coming
get out
to
of where they
some
wanna come
quality.
Out of the middle of nowhere.
Yeah.
What's the county seat?
It's on the Mississippi
Dyer County.
River.
I'm
Dyer-
sorry, Texas
Dyer-
River.
It's in the Mississippi River.
It's up around.
Did you say dire emergency?
No.
I know exactly where it is now.
All right. Any questions on the contracts?
Make a motion to approve the contracts as recommended.
Got a motion, is there a second?
Second.
And a second. All in favor of the motion, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, motion carries. Is that it?
That's it.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Oh, can I ask one thing?
Mhm.
Since Dr. Rudd's taken over, what's this do with the nurses that were giving prescriptions and all that you had contracted there? With, who was that with? That was with the,
Prior to Dr. Rudd
yeah.
was Care Here.
Yeah, we didn't, MedPoint take that over when they came?
No, when the county when the county switched from Care Here to whatever it currently is, the juvenile detention center stayed with Care Here for our medical services.
Okay.
So we have only had until now Care Here, but now we're with.
Now it'll be Dr. Rudd.
Thank you. Drug court report. I don't see Mary.
There's no report.
There's no report. All right. Paul's report.
He's on vacation.
That's right. And,
I do have a
Well,
report.
you got a
However you want to
report?
approve
Okay.
it. It's on your
okay.
pad.
Look over his report and then. If anybody has any questions, I can't answer.
I move to approve the report.
Got a motion? Do we have a second?
Second.
And a second. All in favor of the motion, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, motion is carried. Ambulance service report. Mike brought his 2 bodyguards with him tonight. One of them kind of, I want him to be my bodyguard. All right.
Ready?
All righty.
We made 2,021 calls for the month of July. Average response time is 8 minutes. We had 32 coroner's calls and 14 autopsies. We billed $1,233,039, collected $462,159. That's a little bit low, and we have scheduled a meeting with our billing contractor for this week, and so he's going to be here Thursday. We'll talk about that. We had $370,414 of insurance write-offs, $195,580 of collection agency write-offs, and $1,801 for county workers. Table at the bottom of the page is the cost of operation for each of the ambulances. A total of 37,861 miles. And had an operating cost of $28,489.
One thing that's, and this is always kind of hard, is looking at those unit numbers and seeing where they're at, and whether it's a front line or like Unit 61. It's almost got 200,000 miles. Is that a front line or is that a reserve that's been?
It's a reserve. Would you like for me to change it?
Well, no, I don't know if there's a way to make it easier, you know, because I want you to show the data that you're wanting to show. You know what I'm trying to.
We can. The way we do it sometimes is the ambulances are numbered according to the station. Station 1 is Salem Road. Station 2 is Purchase Street. And the reserve units are designated with an R after the number.
And I know those because you rotate units and you got to keep track with ambulance 61 or unit 61 might have been at 3 different stations over its lifetime, and you got to track it by 61, not what. So I understand why, but it's just kind of because I'm wanting to help you show your need for, you know.
You could color code it on this report and have it jump right out at me. I mean, if you put green for the ones that are active, you know, red or whatever you want on the ones that are not, that should be easy.
And like I said, I'm just trying.
Change any nomenclature.
We can do that.
Because I know you're in a certain situation with Burton Street on replacing ambulances, and you're limited to what you can do there. So that's probably why certain ambulances have higher numbers than.
That number represents the license number of the vehicle on the side. If you look up in the right-hand corner on the driver's side and the left-hand corner on the other side, they have a tag there that's actually a certificate from the state. Okay, but we can do that. Any other questions about that?
I hate to pick on your report because I've always said it's the best one there is because it's got more data on it than anything else.
We made 568 out of zone calls for the month. We had various in-services and training, pedal medics and the TOPS team and REACT and SORT team on the next page.
That REACT deal with Wilson County High Schools that just out of our pocket.
Volunteer. Following page is response times and on-scene times, transport times for the different stations. Following page is calls divided by county commissioner districts. Also on that page is national calls, as well as the transfer calls made by the critical transport team. If you add the numbers up for the critical transport team, it doesn't come up to 48. It comes up to 7. But 41 calls were Middle Tennessee, Rutherford Hospital. Failed to make it on there.
I'd like to congratulate Commissioner Young.
For not winning. Mr. Sereno's got me this month.
Out of last place for the first time in this tournament.
I'll be back in there.
Yeah, I thought for the betting person, I'd bet that would be the case. The next page is probably the most important in terms of who made the calls and where they made it. That grid basically just takes the ambulance numbers and the stations and tells you how many calls they responded to and which zones they responded within. For instance, if you look at number 12, Manchester made 23 calls in their zone. But they made 130 calls into Zone 4, which is MTSU. So.
Of those 130 calls, where are they really responding to? Are they responding out in the county or more in the city or, you know, more in the Black Fox area since that's
Yeah,
MTSU zone?
That's the reason that Commissioner Serino beat you this one. And primarily, that's where they respond to. And then we have a couple of thank you notes.
So really Siegel, like backing up MTSU and the Milton, Las Casas area would be another backup, and they would be covering that side of MTSU, which is not a, I mean, they backed them up 4 times out there, so.
I see the ambulance service also got a letter, just like the fire department did on the deal over in Wilson County Emergency Management on the funeral.
I saw that letter before, thank you. Make a motion to approve the report.
Got a motion and a second. All in favor of the motion, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, motion carries. Got a budget amendment.
As you probably recall, in June, I wrecked my truck. The insurance gave us $15,467.59 for that truck, which we thought was a more than fair price since it was 9 years old. We would like to replace that with a 2014 Ford Explorer. That's on state bid, and Ford of Murfreesboro has the bid on that. The bid with the additional emergency equipment that we require is $30,426.
The Sheriff's Department, did you check with them?
Yeah, I did.
And they're not as good on
The Sheriff's Department bid theirs, and their bid was actually a little bit less than this, but they didn't have some of the emergency equipment on their bid. They bid that separately.
Any questions?
You're actually needing about $15,000.
Yeah, well, the insurance check already went into the general fund. It came in June, so we have to move that back too. So it would be a total of $30,468, and that includes tax.
Where's it coming from there?
Coming out of the ambulance funds, ending balance.
Move to approve.
Got a motion, is there a second?
Second.
And a second. All right, any comments?
Yeah, I gotta have one. I can't believe you came up here to ask for it and didn't get one of the other two to come do it, I'll tell you.
I had that in mind.
Anybody else? Call roll.
Commissioner P?
Yes.
Commissioner Jeff Phillips?
Aye.
Commissioner Tiffany Phillips?
Yes.
Commissioner Schaefer?
Yes.
Commissioner Stevens?
Yes.
Commissioner Young?
Yes.
Commissioner Farley?
Yes. All right, thank you. Fire and rescue. How you doing?
My reports this month's kind of different. Commissioner Young has been requesting that I change that up for several months now. And I kind of figured that where I give a report about who I've met with and who I've talked to, y'all could care less. And this is more reflects what the fire department itself is doing. The first two sheets shows the incident type broke down by the description. This is the total runs from January 1st until August 25th, which was Sunday, up to date. It shows what each type of the response was, whether it be a fire in a motor home, a camper, or structure fire, or whatever, the lightning strike, whatever the incident may be. Total of 561 calls this year. And those are, say, broken down.
So first page is 33 on building fires, that includes residential?
Yes, that's, yeah. That'd be building fires, would be residential fires, outbuilding fires, any kind of structure.
Yeah, 75 accidents with injuries.
This is just our department. And this is the type of report I'm gonna give. This is just, I wanna show this the total for the year, so I'll be, unless it gets into 2 or 3 pages, I'll just probably provide that every month. I run a total.
So there's actually vehicle accidents with and without injuries, total of 128 for the year.
Mm-hmm.
And this was just the county fire department.
This is just our department.
Well,
That's not counting Kittrell, Allenville, and Walker Hill rescues.
Now, this far exceeds what I was expecting, so I like this. This is really good. You can really see what's going on as far as.
Well, it kind of gives you a better idea of what we're doing, and as a department. And then the next page is the broken down response time, showing each instant exactly where the instant was at, or where we were requested to respond to. And then in most cases, it's this is what I pulled off our software. That's this is reported to the Tennessee Fire Incident Reporting System through the state. This kind of gives you an idea too of the response times. This right here is just for from the 30th, which was the day after the last month's public safety, till yesterday.
Yeah, if you print all that other off, we've been.
If I printed this off for years, it'd be.
I will say this: the requirement for a volunteer fire company to meet a response time is 10 minutes, and it depends on the population area, whether it's in between 500 or 100 per square mile or 1,000. And if you look, he's got it. They've responded in 9 minutes and 8 minutes, so that exceeds the national. So that's pretty good response there for actual, and that's only for structure fires, not any other type of call. That's the only thing that's graded, but that just shows that the county's got a good job there.
The structure fires, the 33 building fires, was there any loss of life in any of those?
Yeah, we had one in February on Rehoboth. There was a lady who was elderly. She wasn't very mobile, and so when the house caught on fire, everybody got out, and they didn't have time to go back and get her. And because she was not able to get herself out, she perished.
Had a working smoke alarm too, didn't it?
Yeah.
Didn't have sprinklers, so.
No, if I had it, saved her life.
Well, I just wanted to point that out. I mean, we've been getting a lot of press where people are criticizing us for bringing that up. There's one person that might be alive had those sprinklers been in.
And that's the major focus of the sprinklers. It helps the little ones and the older people who can't fend for themselves. Any questions on any of that? Of course, the EMS other is where we may get on the scene and of an MVA and assist EMS with patient care, because most of my guys are first responders or EMTs, but they work under EMS direction, and then a lot of times they call us for lift assists. The next report is the motor vehicle accident report. We had a total of 48 MVA calls. Now this is countywide. This is all the rescue departments, Kittrell, Allenville, Walker Hill, and our rescue units. 48 MVA calls for the month with average response time 8.8 minutes. And there was 2 on the second page that I know for sure were extrications. The next page is the consolidated fire or water report, and I had the actual total calls for the year is wrong because I didn't put ours in there, and I will do that next month. The actual total calls for the year in the countywide is 1,251 calls. These still isn't actually right because I haven't received a water report or any kind of report from Christiana for the last 3 months. I'm having trouble getting reports from them.
Who did you say it was?
Christiana. So their totals and the totals for calls wouldn't be correct because theirs not added in.
Is that part of the
That's part of the agreement.
agreement contract?
Mhm. The next sheet is what we turn into the codes department of actual structures that have been damaged and will require a permit for remodeling if they choose to do so. The two top factory roads within 100 yards of each other, and of course, they both were arson fires. Fan Road, that's the one the gentleman spoke the other night, we're lighting his house and busted that gas line. The next page is just some events that we've done for fire prevention. We have a lot of requests from daycares and elementary schools to do certain things, and that's just kind of a list, of breakdown of some of the things that we've done in the community. And of course, during this, we give out coloring books and fire hats and talk about fire prevention. And then the last page is a letter from the county mayor of Wilson County, again, just thanking us for our time and dedication to sending a truck over to them when one of their paramedics and firefighters' child was killed. We went over and covered them. And of course, I think you got one last month from the EMA and fire chief over there. This is from the county mayor showing his appreciation for us. And that's my report.
Any questions on the report?
Motion to approve the report.
Got a motion, is there a second?
Second.
And a second. All in favor of the motion, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, motion carried. That's a good report.
And thank you again that just gives us a little bit more data for us to look at.
Well, I got
broken down
by
now.
what you said. I mean, really what I do for y'all to care less, and this kind of gives an idea of what the department's doing. And also, I'm going to try to. I looked at Mike's report, and he does a very efficient report. And I'm also going to try to start tallying, giving the mileage on all of our apparatus every month too.
Cool.
Thank you. Next is Sheriff Department report. How you doing tonight?
Doing good. Doing all right?
I'm doing good. You look like you're tired.
Yeah, been a long day.
Yeah.
We just got 2 amendments. First amendment's going to be taking out of undesignated funds from last year's the GSHO grant that we had. So it's overtime and the related benefits from that of $10,831, $9,000 going to overtime, $558 for Social Security, retirement, etc.
That's just grant money you used last year, moving over this year?
Moving over this year because we've got our thing coming up over this weekend, our checkpoint, so moving that money over. You want to do both together?
Please.
And then we also have the $5,658 out of undesignated for other contracts. Is basically it's all of our Shop with the Sheriff money and our Explorers and K-9 money for that program that we have. That's all I've got.
You've heard the request. Is there a motion?
Motion to approve the request.
There's a motion. Is there a second?
Second.
And a second. Discussion? Hearing and seeing none. Call the roll.
Commissioner P,
Yes.
Commissioner Jeff Phillips,
Aye.
Commissioner Tiffany Phillips,
Yes.
Commissioner Schaefer,
Yes.
Commissioner Stevens,
Yes.
Commissioner Young,
Yes.
Commissioner Farley.
Yes.
I do have a question.
Yes, sir.
Sure. So, in light of the last time we had a stop here in the county, do we have, I know we have our cameras on our own vehicles. Do we have a camera that we could have at these stops that will show everything in not an edited version of what happens when some smart mouth person wants to blow things out of proportion?
We are now going to be angling our cars, trying to get that done. Thank God for the THP video, which showed the whole thing. We're in the process, and actually it was never in the budget or anything, but we're in the process of looking. We won a pair of goggles off of the Governor's Highway Safety meeting, but it's like a pair of safety glasses, but right in the middle's got a camera. And so therefore, wherever the deputy is looking, you're seeing that. Also, it has audio. So we're looking at starting to purchase those. We've gone through a little more training to deal with those type situations. We feel that we're very prepared for, we've done, I think, 2 since that date. But, this weekend being a pretty big weekend, we're prepared.
We kind of got a black eye there because everything that happened wasn't actually shown.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, it was
I just
his
wanna make
edited
sure
version of the events.
Right. All right, that was my question. Thank you.
Yes, sir.
All right, anybody, I guess the report and everything's kind of, this is second month, everything's kind of in line, basically.
In the, where things are, uniforms, for example, you got 32% remaining. That's just because you've encompassed POs. The same with maintenance and vehicles. The ones that are kind of out of whack is just because there's a PO tied to it.
We just encumbered the POs.
And that's building, repair, and maintenance as well, because it's down to 21%. So
We bought the other 2 hot water heaters.
okay. So
Then we also moved money last month. I took out a drug money, if you recall. Put that over I got that in a line item for maintenance. Then also we've had, the lights have messed up again, pardon me, in the parking lot. We just spent $18,000. That was not even expected. And then they came back today and told us they're gonna have to dig up the sidewalks. It's what I say, going with the low bidder, because all the conduit that all the electric lines are run through underneath the parking lot has all crushed in on itself, and so therefore it keeps burning out the electric lines under there. So we're having to go through there and fix that. So it's always those unexpected things that get you.
All right, is there a motion on his report?
Well, thank you for explaining that. I'll make a motion to approve.
Is there a second to this motion?
Second.
And a second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, motion has carried. Anything else?
That's all I've got. Oh, remind you, September 11th, we'll be having our thing out at the sheriff's office. And so, naturally, I think I've sent out all y'all
Yeah.
invitations. I've got back just about everybody. So, but I also want to tell everyone out in TV land that September 11th, come on down to the sheriff's office.
You ain't got mine back, but put me down.
Okay, that'll work.
What's the time on that?
I believe it's going to be 5 to 7.
If you would, if you want to, the next on the agenda, if you want to sit up here at the table, I'm going to get the mayor and the clerk here on, and the judge, and who else? Lisa. We'll come on up and I guess we'll talk about I guess this has come from the Property Management Committee. Is that correct, Mayor?
That's right.
I was on vacation and was not at Property Management, so.
So you can train us, that's what we do.
Okay. Judge Lyron, I've always wanted to feel like how you can get energized up with a second presentation. Really and truly, we had this discussion at Property Management, and Property Management has endorsed the concept of moving forward with building a new judicial building. So we thought, since the Public Safety Committee has a lot to do with safety, public safety, and that our judges and our circuit court clerk, et cetera, they all sort of report through this committee as well, that it would be wise and respectful just to go ahead and let you guys sort of hear the same thing we told the Property Management Committee. And then it's going to go on to budget and see if they will actually approve the money for us. So we'd just like for you to listen to a little bit of this story. You ask questions. This is not an official presentation. We'll just sort of give an overview of where we are and where we've come from. And then maybe this committee can see fit to do as a property management and endorse the concept and send it forward to see if we can really convince the whole commission that we are ready to do this and fund this.
So well, I guess what you're looking for now is an endorsement from the committee, or is that what you're saying, Mayor?
Yes. This one right here won't turn, so I'll have to fix that rather turn the other way so you can read that. Okay. Some of you have been around long enough to remember the history of this better than I do. But anyway, we're not going to look at all of these things here, but the first report was prepared in 2002 with regard to what we needed to do with the future meeting of our needs in this judicial building over there. And then we had a second report in 2008. 2002 really was the report that focused on where are we going to put this building. And then after we commission made that decision, this next report sort of reflected on how big does the building have to be, how large, what are the spaces going to be in it, etc. And just sort of amplified and then put cost data associated with those square footages. So I hope we're all in agreement basically that we have property, we've acquired property that's over adjacent to our drug court building and HR and the risk management's in that building as well. So the rest of that block there, as you're fully aware, is all of our property, and that's the consensus on where we're going to put the judicial building. Okay, hold on a minute. This one right here is working just right for you, sir, so we'll let you have that one.
This one works also.
There you go. Okay. Now, in addition to that, the main judicial building will be there. There's not enough room, it doesn't appear, to put the parking garage there with that building on that particular site. So the parking garage going all the way back to 2002 has been suggested to go in the parking area where we have our county clerk's building there. So the potential plan would be that those buildings that we have on the block that's going to be where the judicial building is, they would be completely taken down first, and then we would make that a temporary parking space so that as we're building the parking garage on the property in the current county clerk's building, we'd have that temporary parking there until we complete the garage, and then we could go back to using that again. Then we could start the construction on the actual judicial building itself. So there would be a bit of time there to transition through that process.
So what buildings are you saying would be taken out?
You know, where the Quick Mart is and all the way down there to the
little strip
Printing
mall.
company
All that little
and a
strip mall.
bicycle shop.
That old Hoover paint store.
Hoover Paint Store all the way down to the, what used to be Production Credit, Farm
Which is
Credit.
what we're releasing some of that.
We're releasing some of that out. So all of that would come down early on. That'd be the first thing. All right. All of this data that we have in this 2008 report, and you've only got a small piece of that 2008 report. You've got section I and J of a report that's just little pieces, all is in your iPad. The rest of the report is right here. So I didn't put all that out there. It's available for any of you that want to look at that and review that in substantial detail. There are 7 different scenarios that was developed through the course of that planning of that, and fleshing that out, finishing up in 2008. I want to point out one thing. That report, that data, that square footage that's been determined to be needed, basically the driving force is the size of this county, our population base. And coupled with that, we have statistical data in the big report that shows the number of cases by all types of different criminal, civil, etc. And it projects all of those forward based on these population numbers that we're experiencing and continuing to experience into how many staff members our circuit court clerk would need, how many courtrooms we would need, how many judges we would have. All of this is linear with respect to what's happening in our population. So I just want to point out a few things. I don't think I have in the big report. I believe that the actual data, they projected in 2033 that we would have about 200 and, let's say 60 or 70,000, 360 or 70,000 people in Rutherford County. That's changing already. So that
What year was that you just said?
2033 is what was in the original.
What we have
It's 2000
for people right now.
That's what they projected, 360 to 70. Okay. And currently, they were projecting, let me see what they projected for where we are right now, which is 2000 and, let's say, 12 or 13. They had us at about 250,000 where we are today, and we're at 271 or 2,000. So we're already above the initial projections here. Those people that are supposed to know, this came from the economic report from the Business and Economic Research from UT, I think. Anyway, in 2030, these people say we're going to be at 420,000 people, not 360 or 70. So they're even more progressive than what we had in this projection for 2008. So the numbers that we have in 2008 probably are understated, and they probably would reflect a need to update the spaces and the data. We would, assuming we get a blessing all the way through this process, we will update these numbers so that we'll have a bit more accurate numbers with respect to the number of staff people we're going to have based on these number of cases and et cetera. And we put that all into the whole process. Okay. Now, Ms. Boland and Judge Lowry can chime in here, or the sheriff, either one. Anytime they want to update whatever I'm saying here, because I don't have all this particularly choreographed. I will say this. If you look at these several scenarios, and the two scenarios that was really sort of came down to scenario 4 and 7, when we had all this discussion back in 2008. And scenario 4 shows 10 courtrooms built out with one floor of the building shelled in so that four more courtrooms would be available. Scenario 7 shows 12 courtrooms being built, and that one future court floor being shelled in for another 4. So that's a 12/16 concept. The people that sort of prepared this, at the time we had all this discussion earlier, before we had this indication that our census may continue to grow even faster than we were thinking then, I think that pretty much we were wanting to go with scenario 4, which is 10 courts with a shelled-in floor, allowing for 4 more in time. With this, it may very well be that we have to go forward with the 12/14. Yes, that might be a few more courts than we really need, but it'd be a whole lot better if we got the space there to accommodate those needs when we're building this, so that we don't have a major difficulty trying to support the additional growth that will occur. There, if you look toward the very, very back of that, after you get through with section I, there's an appendix back there, and then there's some drawings that show these. Well, if you could go to section I, page 8, you can see how that stacks up there on that property.
It's page.
And
it's page 9 of the document.
Is it page 9? I was looking at the bottom.
He's looking at 8.
Page 9 of.
Yeah.
I'm there. It's just page 9 in the PDF.
9 of 19.
Yeah.
Section 1, page 8.
I didn't. But anyway, that's just a simple overview of how that logically could be put together. I haven't mentioned the fact that those of you that use that court building know full well how inadequate you could say might be the proper word is the security that we have over there, and the ability to self-contained, you might say, the inmates that come into the building. Right now, they come into the building into the same public areas that the public is in. But anyway, this would have a whole set of security provisions made whereby there wouldn't be commingling of inmates and our public people that are in the building, and that they would have their access to separate elevators, etc. So that's, you can sort of see the center part of those two ends of the building where you have the hold, you might say, that's more secure. And there would be a small central holding and secure parking area in the basement of this building that the judges and other officials would have some spaces down there to park underneath the building. Stop me anytime. Mr. Young has already heard all this, so he's just listening again.
The difference between scenario 4 and scenario 7 with the 2 additional courtrooms.
Yeah, 2 additional
and 1
courtrooms
extra floor.
initially, plus you still both would have the option with a.
Do we have an estimate of the dollar difference between those 2?
Yes, we'll see that here in just a moment.
The recommendation that come out of property management to the budget committee was to go with scenario 7 because the data that Mayor Burgess was talking about has exceeded where we were at, and we didn't want to spend an additional $30,000–$40,000 in a study for data that we've already know has exceeded the numbers, and it was just a smarter move on our part, property management, to go with scenario 7. And really what kind of gathered sending it to public safety was more to look at the security aspects of it and not the dollar amount, and to get the sheriff on board to make sure that all stakeholders involved were just to look at the overall concept to make sure that safety was involved. And you know, one thing we kind of talked about at property management was the Sallyport. You know, is the Sallyport going to be big enough to? We want to make sure for the future that if you have a tandem axle like a tour bus, eventually to transport your prisoners back and forth, which would be the largest thing you'd ever have transport, that we build it to make sure that we don't shoot ourselves in the foot and have to come back later and ask for more money because we didn't build it right the first time. That was kind of what we wanted to make sure, that all the stakeholders were present. And I think that's what Commissioner, and the more eyes that see it, the better, obviously.
Now, if you'll, it's on page 6 of 19, I think there. At the bottom of the page, it'll say section I, page 5. You'll see scenario 4 and scenario 7 on that page, and you can see the square footages and the dollars. Scenario 4, this doesn't have the garage. There's one on, where's the one with the garage?
Let's see, it's over here.
It's on page 10
Where's-
of the document.
What number is it on?
Section I, page 9.
There, that's.
Yep.
Yeah. Well, those are projections 2012, 13, 14, but you can see that scenario 4 for 2012 is a.
She's talking about this one right here.
Yeah.
Garage added in right there.
Okay, I-9, let's back up. Yeah, that's the simplest, cleanest one to look at, is section I, page 9, whereby the total project cost for scenario 4 is $50.5 million, with a parking garage of $5.2 million, and scenario 7 is $56 million with the same parking garage of $5 million. So you can see that that's the range of what we're talking about here. We're talking between the two of them, $60 to $61 million is our number. You might say it's in the neighborhood.
And there's actually 2 separate parking garages. One is for the public and employees, and the other one is for judges and clerk staff, and then for the Sallyport for the prisoner underneath. So,
if you go back to section I, page 5, and that's number 6 again, page 6. I lose it because when this stuff comes up at the bottom and I can't see what page you are. Anyway, I want you to notice this. The square footage cost that they have put in this building here is far, far in excess of what we're used to seeing with respect to regular commercial office buildings and school buildings. So we hope they've overstated the case, but you can see that building construction cost is $220 per foot in here. So And then the shell court space is $154, and the secure parking is $20,000 per space. They've added all kinds of other things that, to include site development. Then you come down to contention, there's 10%. In other words, they can be all of these estimates 10%. And usually we're not nearly all 10% on the contingency, but that's how much they put into these numbers. So we're optimistic that we'll have numbers here that are realistic and won't be exceeding those numbers when we go forward. And they've got all of the other soft project costs with respect to design, fees, et cetera, 8%. And they've got money in here for security. It's going to be a high-tech security structure. Technology is $2 a foot, and security was $3 a square foot. Furniture, fixtures, and equipment, $12 per square foot. So all of these other soft costs are projected forward to hope to give us as realistic a possible total cost projection as we can with this kind of preliminary discussion going.
One thing that hadn't been said yet, but I'm sure Ms. Nolan will kind of hit on it, is this is a 3-year plan to do this, because it won't happen in 1 year because of the magnitude of the project. The first thing, like the mayor said, will be the parking garage and raising the buildings that we're currently leasing to businesses there on, was that Maple?
Yeah.
Maple. So that's the first year project, so it wouldn't be a bond issue on one big bond. It would be over 3 years broken out to pay for it. And Ms. No, I don't want to steal her.
That's okay. You're doing great.
But there's a plan.
Don't tell him, man.
So there's a plan there to that. So it's not just a one big bond issue that's going to hit the county at one time. And she's done a phenomenal spreadsheet for budget for everybody to look at.
Okay.
Mayor, I got
Yes,
a
sir.
question. We put this off several years. Why are we bringing it up now?
This appears to me to be our best opportunity we've ever had, and maybe the only opportunity we're going to have to be able to accomplish this and pay for it out of our current revenue stream. And if we don't do it now,
You're saying without raising taxes, we'd be able to
I think there's
implement at least the initial stage?
Yes.
That's what I was wanting to hear, so, okay.
Now, I think it's pretty obvious. Let's suppose that this 420,000 population that one of these folks project, let's suppose that doesn't happen. Suppose it's just 350 to 400. The sheriff, the judge, and Ms. Bowling know full well all of this population growth will, unless somebody finds some miraculous way, it's going to reflect itself in more people coming through this system. More arrests, more people being incarcerated, more people standing before a judge. It's pretty much linear. Mr. Stevens probably can attest to that as an attorney. So we've had a few occasions before we were able to move the juvenile court people out to the new juvenile center, before we got youth services moved out there with them and freed up a little bit of space. We were having some difficulties with our fire marshal telling us that we were over capacity, and this has been within the last year or two, and the judges made some accommodations on the way they were scheduling their dockets and things. So we sort of have worked through that on a temporary basis, but it's just no way in the world that we have enough capacity over there to last any substantial length of time. So this, and Lisa, when you look at the numbers she's going to give you in the data, she has it projected on the capital need for the whole county, including our schools. This is about the only small window of opportunity that we have to do it without being just on top of some other big project. This is one, plus a little bit, one new high school. Is what we're talking about here. So, and the one, there's projecting another high school will be a little bit further down the road, and we're really not sure about exactly what the pressure is going to be there. It's going to be less than ever, we think, for a little while.
What could be accomplished by the parking garage? Who could park there? Would there be a charge to park there? Blah, blah, blah.
Well, anybody could park there, but it would be primarily the people that are using it currently. We have to put enough spaces in there just to the current users of the clerk's building, plus enough additional space there to accommodate the people coming into this building. So they're going to be freeing up some space up here around the square, you might say, and moving them out there to that particular building. So everyone up here that's around this square would be happy. Retail establishments, it would help them. But I don't know whether we're going to charge for this or not. I really don't. That's something we'll have to
Every
decide.
place else does.
Sir?
Something like this, hospitals, Davidson County, they charge all around there.
But my concern on that is, if we got someone, a taxpayer that's going up and buying a wheel tax, going up and paying, doing something with the court system, or doing something with the county government, asking them to pay an additional fee or whatever, I mean, I would have my first thought would be that I'd have a problem with that.
And then
More things online can be done, don't forget, because they can pay their wheel tax or they get their licenses online now, if you want. I mean, and I'm sure here in the future, there's gonna be more ways that we can do things too.
then you can also look at validating parking, but then you have to hire somebody and it has to pay for itself. You know, is it the cost worth it for that small of a parking garage? Because that's really not a big parking garage in the grand scheme
You
of
can make it
things.
like some of the garages in Nashville. I mean, it's credit card only, unattended. And believe me, I know what they cost. I was in there just 3 hours. It cost me $24 the other day. So if you don't park in one where you walk in an open area, which are $10 minimums, I mean, it really adds up. So we can have that discussion. It's going to take a lot of thought process there.
What's gonna be done with the present judicial building? How are we gonna use it?
I think as we continue to grow, and you can look around at some of the current buildings we have that are really need to be something done in a transition. I think office space for our county offices, and as we grow a little bit forward there. I think building and codes and the people in that building over there may need to be in another building.
The one pretty much consensus out of property management was the old Murfreesboro Bank and Trust building needs to come to the ground. It's just not safe anymore as far as, and then what's the back side of that building?
You know, we call it the Middle Tennessee Corn Exchange Building,
Okay.
or McClellan's when I was a kid.
And that
Needs to
area
come down,
would,
too.
would need to come down, but the 5-story tower would.
And they y'all make that to a green space or park, whatever the mayor suggested.
All right, here's the next one, because I know we kicked it around. The jail is basically pretty close to being full right now.
Well, that was my opening remarks here. Location-wise, we talked about all of this. You talked about it, some of your commissioners that were here in 2002. I think we've landed, hopefully, we don't reopen all that discussion to stay where we are with the proposed new. He's going to need, potentially, with this growth that we're talking about here as well, probably some more sales down there. We don't want to think about it, but we're going to have to deal with that eventually, too. And he needs that space down there to do just that with.
Exactly, and years ago, we settled on this property downtown for one reason was because of the economic impact of downtown, and the other issue was the property out there where the jail's at now. There's really not enough land out there to take care of but maybe one more tower out there, and that's about it.
When you have one more tower, that parking lot's going to grow.
Yeah.
And
We've got issues down there when that comes, but hopefully that's not going to be for a while.
And that was I don't know what year it was, but that was the discussion back then.
Ms. Bolden or Judge Larry, if y'all want to add anything here to...
Well, I can confirm that the numbers are a little light. I mean, the numbers from that study, our caseload has already hit that 2015 estimate that they have in that study. So we are already doing cases at a 2015 level. We were doing that in 2011. So the numbers are a little out of date. So we do need to update those because we are growing much faster than anticipated.
Our security issues are so bad. I don't know. The sheriff will tell you we're loading and unloading prisoners back on College Street in an unsafe area for escape or for somebody wanting to get back at somebody. I mean, it's just out in the open. Then we're walking them down an open hallway, which is maintained for public use. Both those are horrible security risks that we don't need to be taking. That building was built in 1980. The population of Rutherford County in 1980 was 118,500 people. We're about 272 or 273 today. No one in 1980 could see in the future today to see what our population, I mean, I don't think anybody could see that coming. Our population has grown, and it's going to continue to grow. I mean, the growth has not slowed down. So we've got to look to the future. We're going to need new judges and more space and secure areas, and you know, it's just something that we've got to be done. I know you talk about schools, and you have to build the schools because you've got the people. Well, I think that this is something else you've got that needs to be built, needs to be addressed.
Okay, you can ask us questions anytime you want to, but we'll go back to, I don't know, what one of you asked about why we want to do it now. And Lisa's got some information here that was sort of, I think, give you a good overview of what our capacity is to be able to pay for this. So the budget people really are going to drill down on this, but she can give you a pretty good overview of the available dollars and in context with the other needs that we have as well.
This top sheet lists out the projects that we've talked about and what the school board has talked about. The top part of the section where it's, what I try to do is list out when the school board is projecting their needs. As you can see on top, there's the new schools, then the additions. And they've got some additions projected. They are asking, they say, you know, they feel confident to go 2 years, but anything past 2 years, you know, it's always a big question. But they have, in their initial 5-year plan, show a high school opening in the fall of 17, and in the fall of 18, a new elementary and new middle. So I back up into where I have timing of funds needed, trying to back up, well, that's when they want to open it. Well, when do we start needing money? And that's what I'm showing you in this bottom part. Okay, so if you go, so that top part, schools, and then the bottom part, what we're talking about, general, and the things that I've got listed are those things that we've kind of talked about. I've got a parking garage, the airport improvement, and a road project. This is the $1 million that we pulled out of the Joby Jackson. That estimate was $4 million. We took $1 million of that to buy the property at the sheriff's office, so we still lack $1 million there. You see where I put parking garage at $8 million, but you see in this information that the mayor has presented is around $5 million. But I figure at this point you still are going to be needing money for planning architectural contracts. So I've kind of built in something for that in that $8 million. So it's not $8 million I've got for the parking garage. It's some amount of money to go towards that timing of the building of the Justice Center.
She's got enough for the demolition there and for the architectural engineering fees. You know, most of those could be in there, and probably it's still a little bit more than we really have to have in the $8 million. It's probably maybe could be $1 million more, but anyway, we're going to need it at some point.
Right. So in that first list, I just want to kind of show you where these numbers are coming from, kind of how all this page is built out. So our potential borrowing needs, and I was truly trying to smooth some of this out, that we would potentially $22.2 million in the spring, 43.3 in the fall, to take care of all these projects we've got listed. So I just want you to see that kind of, what color is that, brown? Okay, so when you see that number, these numbers are going to come up later. Now this second sheet that's got a 2 in the corner, that's page 2, but it's also an estimate of what we're projecting revenue growth on the assessment in the county, which then drives the value of the penny. When I presented to property management, I had listed a 3% growth rate in the next 3 or 4 years. Commissioner Baum wanted to see how did it look for two, with two. So this top sheet, that's what the two is showing, a 2% growth rate of the value of the penny. So all this is where I really want to show you is where the second arrow is. And this is based on what our total debt service projections are on our current debt, with a 65% requirement in our fund balance. How much are we over that in the current year? Well, we're over a $5.6 million of our requirement. That shows that we have an excess of $5.6 million. If we were to borrow at 4%, how much could we borrow and satisfy that debt? I've got just the way the debt is scheduled. I've got negative in the next year, so if you would just look at the next 2 years, 13, 14, 14, 15. I've kind of somewhat knitted those numbers. So at 4%, you potentially could borrow $69 million, $69.7 million. Well, where I've got need, I show, this is where it ties back to the needs over here. That first year is 22.2. 22.2, but you've got capacity. The second year in this projection, you need 43.3. Well, you've got less, but you don't need all of it. But so between the 2 years, you've got 65.5 that you need, and you've got the capacity if we have a growth rate of 2%.
How much did we borrow the last bond? It's the rate.
The rate,
2.42 in the last tax exempt money.
right.
So 4%. The rates are moving up a little bit.
Right.
They haven't moved up really that far yet. They are
But I
moving.
just kind of want to show you, but if you go back to 3.5, then you could do 72 points. You do more if the rates aren't as high. So that just, guess I'm trying to show you all that. So
Right.
the debate is 2%, 3%, what's the growth rate?
But 2% is a number that's a low number compared to history.
And he's right, so
Right.
I pulled
She
that.
was using, when I first came here, 4 and 5% routine growth rate, so we shrunk it way back just to be more conservative in our planning.
So with that thought, I mean, I did go back to see, to what were the growth rates, and we had a low in the 9-10 year of only a 4.6% growth. But previous to that, you were at 4, 5, 6. And then in reappraisal year, you were at 16.5, 21.7, and 11.9. So then I looked at, well, what has happened in the last 2 years? It's been a 0.6 increase and a 0.9. We've projected next year a 0.3% increase. So then I just redid all this and said, okay, what if we only have a 0.5 increase? Again, you don't have this, I do. In the next 2 years, you could borrow 62, this is at 4%, 62.75 million. But, to me, is that realistic? If the growth numbers are right for the people coming in, you're going to have to have a place where these people live. You are going to have growth in assessments, just growth of new buildings in our community. So you're going to have, I can't say you have one without the other. If you're going to have all the growth, you're going to have the assessments.
But
of
is
these
the
places
growth
live.
going to cost more than what you get from it?
The growth always costs more than what you get from
There
it.
you go.
Yes. But then again, because you have schools, so if the growth comes, not only do you have this, but you've got schools. And that's what the mayor is, I think, alluding to in the very beginning. We have what appears to us, a small window of opportunity before the schools start coming in, saying we need more schools because of the growth. We need more schools, we need more schools.
It's all about time.
Even with her conservative numbers, we still think we have this window of opportunity.
This is something that was talked about last year in property management as well, that the following year will be the year, and that's kind of It's been an ongoing process.
And this even reflects the fact that we took a penny,
One penny.
one penny out of our debt service fund even this year, so we've moved $560,000 out of it already. And still we have this, appears to be reasonable capacity.
But at 0.5%, you can't afford to start adding all the schools. I mean, you'll have to, if that's all the growth and assessments we have, but we have all the children, it will cost extra.
So this is sort of our little presentation to this group here, and we'll take questions, or
We don't have a plan. It's not going to be the too distant future before we're going to get court orders coming in. You know, and then you don't have the choice. And you can't, if you can't handle the incarceration, the court dates, etc., the crime, then if you can't handle that, then the court's going to come order. If they've done that in the past, and they'll do it again.
What about the jail? I guess what I'm asking is, are we assuming that we're going to be okay at the jail, not adding on?
well, the sheriff promised us that with this $1 million we spent, we had 4 or 5 years before we had to address that.
Have you looked at this? I think that was part of the question, was for the sheriff's department to look at this and see if it met all the safety requirements that
The mayor and I
they
met
important.
today and talked about that, and we talked about security, because that's what I brought up to him today, was about security and how the law reads on it, and he assured me that once we started putting pencil to paper to draft it, that the sheriff's office would be very involved in the security aspect of this new courthouse.
Just another thank you. Just another question. Why is the square footage on this one so much higher than what we've been seeing on other buildings?
Historically, the courthouses that have been built across the country they're built with a little higher level of finish and grandeur. And the security, of course, the security is a little bit more here as well.
It's $3 a square
technology.
foot just for the security. And then
The one thing is security, the way that a lot of these courthouses all across the country, we've heard, down in Georgia where inmates have gotten loose and been able to do things. And these are older courthouses, just like the courthouse we have now. We've had inmates prior to my administration that have gotten loose and took off down the road because of the way that this is all set up. The situation we have now was never designed, as the judge said. It was never thought of. The way that the magnetometer is set up over there, at that point in time, you just bebopped right on in the courthouse. And so with a new courthouse, the new security measures are going to it takes money to set those up and put them in place with cameras and magnetometers and stuff.
And this consultant's kind of looked at Chattanooga and
This guy built Chattanooga's
I mean,
jail.
he built
and
multiple judicial centers that
Yeah,
give us a
and he's just giving us, and
benchmark.
that is just an estimate. He probably won't even be building it, but the guy that's a consultant also, he builds these
They were the
things.
consultants on the courthouse that they built in Davidson County.
Yes,
a few years
they did
ago.
Hamilton County, they did the Criminal Justice
But if you
Center.
go in those buildings and you can see the decor and the benches and all that, it takes a lot more money than just a regular classroom, for example. It really adds up a lot of dollars in those benches. That material they might add up as bulletproof, et cetera. It's a lot more things there.
I have some questions. First, I want to know more about what we're going to do with our current judicial building that we have now. Like what's the projected
We could fill it
offices
up
to
if
go
we
in there?
chose to evacuate this Goldstein building over here.
So then we would sell that property.
We'd sell the property. I'm not too keen on what the building over there is. Again, it's not safe.
Dangerous.
If we ever have a fire over there, the whole block will go down.
Which building is this?
Goldstein.
Okay.
The Goldstein.
Just want to make sure y'all are telling me.
So those folks would move into the current
They-
judicial building more than
I
likely.
think there's some possibility. There's not really a well fleshed out plan to do that, but I mean, we definitely have that need.
Well, that seems to be priority one, is getting those folks into a safer. Of course, the space where they're going to be moving into the judicial building would have to be renovated and
So,
modernized.
yeah, we'd have to fix it where it's more office friendly, yes.
So then we would sell that property.
Could sell that
Well, that
property. if you
property's
so-
probably gonna be more valuable without the
Without the
gold
building.
stallion building there than it would be with that building there.
And then what other offices would be moving in? It seems logical to me to put the trustee and the property assessor right next door to each other, so when people go pay the property taxes, if they've got a problem with the assessment, they don't have to drive a few blocks down and find the property assessor's office. They can just walk across the hall and go dispute their assessment or.
I haven't spent a lot of time on this, quite honestly. That's another good idea you have there, but there are enough good ideas there to more than fill that building up.
And then I guess my other question is, could we leave some of the courts in the current building we have and have like a scaled down new building? Or does it have to all go in the same one?
That was discussed in 2008. I don't know about prior to that. Sort of the consensus is that Mrs. Boland's team of support people and all of that process working together is a lot better staying together as one unit. I don't know, we can let her speak to that.
And I think that the two scenarios don't have the DAs, the PDs, or the drug court. The two recommended scenarios don't have those actually located in the building. They do have all the courtrooms and the associated clerks that go with it. So trying to keep that together and trying to reorganize the staffing situation, because right now we're spread all over. I mean, the clerks themselves aren't even necessarily near where the courts they serve either. So they're spread all over, you know that. So just trying to coordinate more of the space in those terms.
And that'd be the same thing with the sheriff's office. If we have two different buildings that we're hauling prisoners to, unfortunately, you're gonna hear me say, we're gonna need some more deputies and we're gonna need some more vehicles and for security and or transport to haul these prisoners back and forth to two different locations. Or three different locations, because we already do it to juvenile as well, right now.
The only court that was sort of mentioned more than once that might stay there is Chancery Court.
But the Chancery and the circuit judges interchange on divorce and family law cases.
Yeah,
that
so
you
they
have
need
to-
to be together for that purpose then, yeah.
You know more about it, how it works than the rest of us.
Well, I know
who up
the
here.
current building is inadequate for the long term, and it's something that we are going to have to do. So I can tell you firsthand that when you go in there early in the morning, that it's wall to wall with folks that are in trouble with the law. And then the small claims general sessions docket for people who haven't paid their rent and just small lawsuits. Those dockets are 10 or 12 pages some days, and the courtroom's packed with people. And there's going to be more and more of those folks that come in. And I guess we might be able to put some more dockets in the afternoon, but that's more work for the clerks. And the courtrooms that we have are used for trials in the afternoon sometimes, and you don't know what days they're going to be available necessarily. So, I mean, it is something that we're going to have to do, but I really want to know what our plan is going to be before we just decide we're going to spend $60 million. I want to know what's going in the current building and what we're going to do with the Goldstein property, and I'm very interested in what we have here. And I think that while this information is very positive and beneficial for this committee, I'm not sure if it's really our place to make recommendations to budget or the full commission. The property management committee has already sent the concept over to the budget committee. It's already on its way, and I just don't know that we need to take any action on it. I appreciate all the information. It answered a lot of the questions that I had, but I just don't know that I'm in a place to make a recommendation one way or another at this point, because I still have a lot of questions that I would like to have answered first.
So really and truly, a plan for what the building would be, that it would be coming out of it, I mean, that's something that you're gonna have to put some committee together to look at what the future is gonna lie as far as building codes or HR or drug court, or not drug court, but
HRAs really are very, very cramped, so that might be something.
You know,
It's any number of
We
comments.
kind of have that in property management. I mean, we just haven't gone there yet. But
Yeah.
that's, property management's kind of,
I guess my point is that needs to be their responsibility to come up with that master plan, and while all this information is very beneficial to us, I don't know that we as a committee need to really get in the way and start making recommendations. I think the sheriff and the clerk and the judges can work with property management without us getting in the way.
I think we can take something back to property management and get that ball rolling, because I know I've been a big advocate, if we're not using the property, we need to get rid of it. We don't, because put it back on the tax roll.
Well, I think property management would do that.
And property management, they didn't intend to pass any decision-making process. They thought it would be the courteous and respectful thing to do, since this group is heavily involved in public safety, to be involved in
Well,
this
actually,
discussion.
going back in a little history here, this actually started in public safety, the committees years ago. So actually, and Commissioner McAdoo having that history to the knowledge, that's why, I think that's one reason he actually would want, and with the security of the sheriff's department, public safety to look at it. So it's just giving a little history. That's
I think his thought the other night was that he thought that this should be brought before this committee. Really two reasons. Number one, this does have to do with public safety, sheriff's department. And also to acknowledge that this is going to go at some point for the county commission, so y'all would have some knowledge about how it was going to be funded and what it was going to be like and what the concept was. And that was
kind
his
of goes back
thinking.
what the Commissioner was talking about a while ago. He didn't have something, on the OGI report. This way we've got knowledge where we can make a good decision based on the facts and we know.
Because you're probably going to see this again at some
Right.
point, and I think he wanted public safety should be involved in the process.
I really questioned why it was on our agenda. I really did. After the presentation, I can see a little bit more clearly why it might be on there, but I'm not real sure it's something that I'd feel comfortable saying. How long has property management been working on it? A pretty while, right? And I'm not sure that here in our presentation that I can say I endorse it, but I'm not going to say that I won't endorse it either. But I think, just from my perspective, I'm glad I've got the information. I'm glad the presentation was made, but as far as endorsing it and forwarding it on, I'm not prepared to do that.
I kind of agree with what you're saying there. One thing I will throw out there, though, is public safety in the past, when we were building jails, for instance, we were involved with that, and we were overwhelmed. You know how much we see here and how many people we see every time they come in, and that's part of the reason that was moved over to property management, so because they weren't doing as much, and they had the time to look at that and dig in deeper, and also they were working with, some of the groups that we had that were actually going in for cost savings. So, we did it as cost saving, plus, these meetings sometimes would be 4 or 5 hours long, and a lot of it had to do with these buildings we were messing with, so that would kind of catch you up on that. But
would y'all like it from property management when we kind of meet and discuss, just kind of forward the minutes onto this committee instead of stuff coming back to it? I mean, is that, because Commissioner Farley and I can take that back. I mean, I don't know. Like, for example, the use that you were talking about, the current 5-story judicial building, you kind of want to see the plan. Once we kind of get the plans that aren't necessarily the safety aspect, you just kind of as a heads up,
right.
Unlike the OJI document, kind of in lieu of it coming back.
You get every set of minutes. I mean, they come to each of you for every meeting anyway.
Send them to us.
I personally I appreciate y'all sending it forward to us, because we're going to learn about it sooner or later, and it's going to help me too when it hits budget. I've got something I can be looking at between now and then.
But the other thing is, no matter what, this does pertain to public safety, but the other thing, sometimes it's going to have to be done. I mean,
Well,
it's gonna.
you know, this does pertain to property management, it does pertain to public safety. I'm glad I got able to see them, and I would have seen it the other night if I'd been on vacation. But I'm glad that we were able to see this and get more knowledge of it, and where it'll help me make, you know, a good decision, you know, based on the facts.
Well, one thing too is, this is the second time I've heard this presentation. It was better this time because I actually had some better numbers from Ms. Nolan that Commissioner Baum said, hey, let's get this 2% growth rate instead of a 3%, and to get a better understanding of, we still do have that borrowing capacity, which is, you know, and Commissioner Baum knows his numbers, so he's really concerned about that, and that's the first thing he saw, and I wouldn't have seen that. And now to know that those numbers come back and validate everything that Ms. Nolan's been working on, that we still do have that borrowing capacity, it's better that I saw it a second time. So you always keep learning what's going on.
I think it was worthwhile an extra 30 minutes tonight to sit here and hear it and see it.
I don't disagree.
Yeah.
I think it's, we kind of knew it's back on, it's moving really close to the front burner after it was taken off of it for about 10 years, really,
Yeah.
something like that. And one of the reasons it was strictly for financial reasons, and can we just continue to build and build and build and build and build and get more and more and more and more and more out of the taxpayer. And if this is doable, I would be much more receptive to building it now than waiting. And I'd also be much more receptive to looking at a scenario that would take us as far into the future as we could possibly go. You know, we thought we were doing things like that when we built this jail over there. And it's just, it's almost like build it and they will come, you know. It is one of those things. And you just look at, just drive across town. Some people just complain that it's a 45-minute trip to get across town.
I can be in Nashville quicker than I can be out on Lascassas Pike from where I live. That's no lie.
Me living close to MTSU can attest that the last couple of weeks have been kind of hairy.
Today was okay, you know.
It'll settle down some, but it's still, anyway. This whole deal, when we started the process of buying that property, in essence condemning some of that property and buying it, was not an easy thing to go through. And if it was the best place to build at, in essence, to keep that government entity close to the downtown area, it seemed to be the best scenario, and I don't know that anything has changed since then. So that's probably still the best piece of property to build that on. And we really aggravated a lot of people by going through that process. And if now's the time, I'm glad this was brought to us. I really am. I didn't feel like that when the meeting started. I said, what is this 19-page report doing here? But anyway, I understand it now a little bit better, so thank you.
Well, I think a new judicial building I've been over there and seen the capacity of the overcrowding in those halls and in those courtrooms. Not only that, it's an inconvenience to the people that go over there, but it's also an inconvenience to the employees that are over there that working every day to have to deal with, you know, the security measures and the crampedness and stuff like that. So from 1980, this is 2013. It'll be 2015 by the time something like that's built. It's a long time.
I also believe that preserving certain things uptown is still real important. The whole Main Street issue is still, in my mind, really important as we go forward as to what this historic downtown area looks like, and we can maintain some of where we've been and not just where we're going to. And it's important to me. Sometimes you have to make pretty tough decisions, and that Goldstein building is crumbling. And I'm not sure that it's salvageable. or if it is historic, the way some of the other buildings are, but it is crumbling. And it's not just for those people, it's for the residents of Rutherford County too. And it's pretty important. So it could solve more than just one scenario as we go forward.
That prompted one other question for me. Does anybody have any data or any information about what happens to the businesses on a square when the courthouse moves away from it? Because I've heard several business owners worried that if the judicial building is moved, that it might affect their businesses.
Well, moving that short distance there, I don't think there's any real thought it's going to affect it, but moving it completely off the square, that original study in 2002 showed the economic impact. It's way back then, it was $37 million a year or something.
Yeah.
They were,
So moving it one block would have really no effect. It shouldn't have no effect on it.
Because all of the other offices, attorneys are going to stay in the neighborhood as well.
And walking distance from, the restrooms and stuff like that is going to be.
And it might actually increase retail because there's more parking spots downtown. Where you come to Friday morning on the square, you can't get a spot. Now Monday morning you can, but Friday morning you can't. I don't know why.
But we do know.
Yes, we do.
That's
Is
the
the
highway patrol take us to read it on Friday.
Yes,
So,
You'll see a few black and yellow cars parked around on those days.
but
That
yeah,
parking garage could also be a real important element to this. We've had so many discussions about parking spots around town and who's using them, and it just goes on and on and on and on.
and this is the heart of my district, and I've talked to a lot of people about it, and everything you said was right. People are concerned about the landscape of downtown. They don't want to, if we dozed our current buildings down and built a humongous building on the square, they'd raise, doesn't matter what it cost, they'd raise all kinds of cane because it changed the look of the square, and people want to keep the downtown, really the historic downtown, pretty much the same. And you're concerned about the economic. That's a huge issue, and the consensus is where it's going, even though it took businesses and people were upset about that. The location of where it's going is really going to not change the dynamic of downtown in the negative. But with a parking garage, you're going to have a parking garage really on both sides of the square, the city's plaza and then the parking garage. The proposed parking garage would hopefully alleviate a lot of other issues.
Any potential financial aid, any federal type of financial aid or state financial aid, any type to build something like this?
I don't know of anything. I guess the short answer is no.
Okay.
What about in the recommendation, it said parking garage, whether it was built by the county or privately funded. Did property management talk about that?
We haven't talked about that yet, no.
I don't know if you build privately funded, something on county property, you build a privately funded thing on county property.
We don't need to get into that. Possibly
I didn't know.
99-year lease or something.
One thing that I'd like to see, and Commissioner Stevens is right, I don't know if we necessarily need a motion or recommendation other than or accepting the report like we do for another, just accepting the report in. I don't think we need to, there's a consensus that don't want to vote something up or down when you don't have all the information.
We can sit and beat this dog to death now, but I think, does anybody have any questions?
Thank you guys for being here and making that.
Thank you for listening.
Thank you.
If there's no other questions on that, I would appreciate the presentation.
Thank you.
All right, thank you very much.
Is there any other business come before the committee tonight?
Yeah, that's one thing. I wanted to mention our scheduled meeting date in November is for Thanksgiving week. And there's a lot of quote employees that report to this that take time off, and the reports are usually less of those reports that we receive in person, and I'd like to look at changing that meeting date or from
What if we wait till next meeting and do that in case the committee changes a little bit? Or go ahead, it doesn't matter to me.
Well, what I'd kind of like to do is just to look at what might be available.
Vicki has those dates.
Can we look at that and then maybe report back?
What we can do is put that on the agenda for next month.
That'd be fine.
And have that make a,
That'd be fine.
Okay.
It really would be. But I know there's a lot of folks that are
take vacation.
taking some additional time off during that holiday week.
all right. Is anything else come to this meeting? All right, thank y'all. We stand adjourned.